Part of my job for the past 25 years has been to write headlines. But when I actually became one, I was not happy. Not happy at all. To think it all started over a bus and a tweet. The bus service where I used to live was generally pretty good, but had a few pretty patchy moments. Unfortunately, one of those patchy parts was in the morning, just after 9 o'clock. There was sometimes a gap of 20 minutes or more where it was a bus desert, tumbleweed, nothing on one of the main arterial routes into Belfast city centre at peak time. And it wasn't unusual for the gap to be even longer, as buses that were due to arrive imminently would simply disappear from the electronic display, like some diesel powered double decker Marie Celeste. Let's just say I often made my feelings known to TransLink, the bus company, via Twitter. At first, they didn't quite get Twitter. Their social media people would respond to a complaint tweet with a request that you go to their website and fill out a form. I pointed out repeatedly to them that the tweet was the complaint. And to be fair to them, they really improved. Questions to them about lack of services or failure of a bus to show up would be met with actual information. For instance, that a service had been cancelled or there were delays. I always made sure to thank them for their good communications and their failed transport policy, and we got along just fine. Now, I need to make it clear, I am not a morning person. I never have been, not even as a child. It's just how I am. I am not at my best before coffee, and sometimes not after that either. So maybe on this particular morning in June 2017, I was excessively vexed. As usual, it was a bus desert. Then nothing arrived when it should. The display was showing the next bus was still ages away. I was going to be late for work and I wouldn't get my morning coffee as quickly as I would like. Plus, as no bus had come down this road for ages, the queues at the bus stops would be very long. This was going to be a very frustrating journey. And so I told the bus company my feelings in no uncertain terms, but no rude words. I expressed my dismay and my frustration that while I was using public transport, they couldn't guarantee they could get me to work on time. I expressed my feelings that this was a ridiculous way to run a business and that if media bosses used public transport, their per service would be headline news on a daily basis. Rant over, I went about my business and thought nothing of it. I probably complained to whoever was in the office and whoever wanted to listen, but pretty much that was it. That afternoon, a colleague at the company press office called to see me and beckoned me out to the corridor for a private chat. She told me that the local newspaper had asked for an official comment about my series of tweets. I was dumbstruck. She told me that this newspaper was monitoring the social media of people in the BBC where I was working, waiting to pounce if someone said something they shouldn't or got in a social media row. It gave them an easy story, and I had seen at least two examples where other staff members have been dragged into the news for ridiculous purposes. But they were on-screen personalities, and I wasn't. I was a mid-level member of the production staff, very much backroom. Why would anyone even bother to read my tweets? Don't worry, she said. We get this all the time. We won't respond, so they probably won't publish. But they did. BBC man scathing attack on useless Belfast bus service, screamed the headline. The body of the text called me a top BBC producer, which was news to me. I would have said mediocre mid-level producer, but maybe that's not so catchy. The article went on to say that I slammed the transport company as useless, claiming that if more management used the bus service, they'd be facing much more scrutiny or something like that. If you must, you can go read it. It's still online. It's still nonsense. But I also knew going into work that morning that the boss would see it and would be unhappy because my boss was never happy and was particularly skittish about anything on social media. And while other people in other departments who had been singled out by this paper had been told not to worry and receive support from management, well, that's not how it played out where I was working. An email. I need to talk to you about the tweet. Call into my office at 1:45 p.m. Great. Now I had all morning to mull on it. I wasn't particularly worried. I just didn't want confrontation or hassle. I don't like drama outside of a movie or a soap opera. Anyway, the showdown arrived. I was really angry by now. I'd had a couple of hours to stew on the ridiculous situation. And although I was really annoyed that I was about to be cross-examined about something so ridiculous, I expected I would just go in, listen, and then go back to my desk, which was more my style. But you know what? I stood up for myself. I made it very clear that as a first rule of journalism, context was everything, and she should have known that. The tweets were part of an ongoing discussion I had been having over several years with the transport company. The complaint I made was legitimate. This particular newspaper was full of nonsense, and we all knew it. And if that paper had been specifically policing our social media, targeting employees, wasn't it the boss's responsibility to warn everyone? I was in full flow. Also, just because I was an employee of the BBC didn't mean I had abdicated all my civil rights and liberties. I was still a citizen, and if I wanted to complain about public transport, then I had every right. But what about the comment about managers not using the bus? Clearly, the boss felt targeted. What about it? They don't, or they'd know what the service was like. I pointed out that there was no mention of my employer anywhere on my Twitter feed. They'll have seen your name on the credits at the end of a program. I think I laughed out loud at that one. Yeah, because my name appears for about 6 seconds going along the bottom of the screen. Wise up, I said. Stalemate. We kind of agreed to disagree, and the matter was closed. I made one concession. As I left the office, my final comment was, I've taken the tweet down out of respect for you, but you are wrong. So that was kind of the end of it. I was embarrassed about it all for a long time. I wouldn't mind making the papers for achieving something, for winning my Nobel Prize, but this, a tweet about a bus, seriously? It used to be the first thing that popped up in Google when I typed in my own name, and we've all done it, much to my frustration. Nowadays, though, you really have to go look for it. Even Google has lost interest.
Thank you very much, Paul, telling us that terrible story. My God.
Yeah, I've had to not name the paper, though local people will obviously guess, I imagine.
Yeah. How long do you think you were embarrassed by it?
I know it was embarrassing because it was just silly. It was just like,
yeah.
Come on, it's a complaint to a bus company.
Totally.
Why is this in the paper? And I don't want to be in the paper unless it's for something
10 by 9
positive or 10 by 9. Yeah. So
they because they put it in the print version as well.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah.
I'm sure nobody will go and look it up.
No, nobody will. I won't be sending the links to anybody.
You're very welcome to, because it is so silly when you read it. Actually, it is really ridiculous.
Yes. Person gets annoyed with bus company for being late.
And they didn't ask me for a comment. I was affronted.
I know. Yes, I know. Now we're going to our North Belfast correspondent to find out. Well, I'm glad you're over it, and glad that the buses run better now. Although now mostly you walk to work.
Oh yes, that's true. Yeah.